Good evening. Been a wild day for the Riggs household. Slept in fairly late and got with it and got on down to Algodones, Mexico. Drove in. They worked on me for, I don't know, about close to an hour and put a bridge in back here. And feels pretty good. Drove in because that dentist has their own parking lot, so your car's safe and off the road. When we pulled back to get in the line to come out, Donna, I think, jokingly said, "You suppose it'll be a 2-hour line?" 2.5 hours. Start and move. Start and move. Leave it running and move. 2.5 hours. That's painful. That's just downright painful. But anyway, got the job done. The bridge is in, and now I go back one more time in April, and then in September I'll get the actual implants. I've got the pegs into my jaw. They've got to grow in solid before they put any teeth up there and put stress on it. Imagine implants. Never expected to do anything that fancy, but figured on living at least a few more years, and might as well be able to chew my steaks. Be able to enjoy my food a little bit more, and probably help my health in general. Anyway, got over to Japan. Got down to Beppu. I don't know, the good Lord, I suppose, arranged it. But I was assigned to a bunk in a room. I suppose one of the bunks recently vacated by somebody that rotated. And my roommates were two people that became my closest friends. Dr. John HEFFELFINGER, MD. Dr. Stanley Sterling, dentist. Those guys were neat, family men with high moral standards, just the kind of environment that you need to have around you to be your best self. I liked them. I think they liked me. We got along just fine. Excuse me. Either the first weekend or the next, they said, "Hey, we've got a Jeep checked out, signed out to us, and we're going to go out and drive around the countryside a little bit, take some pictures. You want to go with us?" Hey, you bet. You bet. I like to see the countryside anytime. That's the farm boy in me. And getting off base is always a good thing when you're in the military. So we go out. Boy, those guys take pictures like mad. Kids, fields, carts being pulled by an animal, sometimes by an ox, sometimes by a water buffalo. Whatever, they snapped away. Incidentally, it didn't take a weekend or two of that, and I had to buy a used camera from one of them. I don't remember which one, so that I could join the shutterbug business. One of the strangest things for a farm boy from the wheat farms of Oklahoma and Kansas to see was a group of women that were threshing, I suspect, rice. Obviously it was a grain because you'd see the chaff fly. What they were doing was, I suppose there was at least a half a dozen, maybe even 8 or 10. And they had what looked like a huge piece of canvas. And maybe it was the size of a parachute, you know, a good-sized piece of cloth. And they would snap it and toss that grain into the air and the chaff in the air and let the air that they created, plus the little breeze that was there, carry the chaff away. I suppose eventually they'd get pretty clean grain. But wow, did that look strange to a kid that used to seeing a combine that turns out relatively clean grain, and just, I suppose the grain, after it hits the header, the time it comes out of the spout into the bin, is in that machine maybe 3.5, 4 minutes, I don't know. But that's quite a contrast to seeing people trying to get their grain clean with no power other than their human arms snapping a piece of canvas. Now, I think before we got there, that canvas had probably been down in some sort of an indentation, and probably with maybe their bare feet. I don't know. I think they'd use something to beat those heads of grain to separate the grain as much as possible, to where when they flipped that the air could carry away the inedible parts. Another favorite thing for them to photograph, and eventually for me to photograph, was just the scenes of the countryside, including trees. Now, there weren't a lot of trees around on the fields. In fact, the fields didn't have trees on them. But along the cliffs of the ocean, and along the road where the road and the ocean weren't that far separated, there were some of the doggonedest shapes that you'd ever see. Some of them, perhaps you'd say, ugly, and yet they all were fascinating because they weren't symmetrical shapes. The wind from the sea, the wind to the sea, I don't know, various things had been happening that some of them are pretty grotesque, and yet all of them, in one way or another, a sight to behold and to photograph. So the Lord put me with two good men to help me be a good man as well as a good soldier. And for that I'm thankful.